So thank you very much for flying from Japan to be here. This is the international premiere. This is the second public screening of the film.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Let's start with you, Usman.
Yep.
This is a personal project originated with you as the screenwriter. Maybe take us into that process, where this story is coming from.
Well, pretty much this is a dramatization of the experience that I had living in Japan. I was raised in an international environment. I went to an international school my whole life until sophomore year, where my dad's company went down under, and I was forced to leave the international school, and I had to start working different jobs here and there. I also worked in construction. So basically, going to international school my whole life, being a part of an international community where there are a lot of biracials, Filipinos, different people from different backgrounds, and then just kind of being shot into Japanese society, where they look at you as a foreigner. I identify myself as Japanese, but I really had a hard time understanding or trying to figure myself out while working at these places. And so that was basically the experiences that I've been through, and I pretty much wanted to showcase that to a Japanese audience. That was my initial goal. Yep.
And then from there, you created a script. Was it always your brother in mind to direct? You didn't think about directing yourself?
No. I always wanted to collaborate with my brother and make something with my brother. We actually, side note, we used to make vines.
They're still online if you want to look
it's
them up.
online. I don't recommend it. It's not that funny. But so I always had, my brother always wanted to be a director, and I guess he influenced me. And so I always wanted to collaborate with my brother, and this project was probably the first of many, hopefully.
Aside from the vines.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so, Bilal, this is your second short film. Can you tell us a little bit about your approach to this script? Are there any rules you set up for yourself? Any challenges that were specific to working with your brother as the actor and handling this very personal material? It's on. Okay, I lied.
Yep.
Mic check.
Yeah, I'll just use this.
Let's switch.
For this film, it was my brother's personal experience and also mine. But we wanted to make sure that it's not just about our narrative. So we did a lot of research into other biracial experience, I guess you can say. And then we tried to make a story that people can relate to, and not just our story. That's something that I guess it was our challenge to make sure we create a story that not only biracial people can understand, but also Japanese people can see it and feel that it's something that they can relate to. So we didn't want them to be seeing something that they would understand. So I think that was the challenge. I think that was a bit difficult. We wanted to make something so they would understand. At the same time, they wouldn't feel that we are kind of segregating them with us. That was a challenge. And the challenge with directing my brother, well, it was a bit difficult, to be honest. Yeah, but I think it worked out fine. I think in the end, yeah.
And then, Kai, at what point did you join the project? And in speaking to not wanting to just have the Kawazoe biracial hafu experience, did you have some input about your own experience growing up as a mixed race?
We talked about it a lot, I think Usman and I don't know, did you, we went to an international school, but not the same
Together.
one. Yeah, he went to an international school in Kobe, and I went to international school in Nagoya. And that's how kind of we were connected. But we talked about it a lot, and it was interesting because I grew up attending a very small international school in Nagoya. It's a bit of a gated community, you can say. So I never really had the experiences Haruki had. I didn't relate to him at first, because I think I was closer to Makoto, where I was just kind of dealing with things, and I wasn't really ever aware of the slight. I wouldn't call it. It's really hard in Japan because I think it's different to if you say racism, because I think a lot of it in Japan is not out of spite or disdain or anything. It's just a misunderstanding of people's identities, and it's such a homogenous society. So, anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, I didn't really connect to the character at first, but after doing the film, it's interesting that I see it a lot and I feel it more and more. And every time I talk to somebody in Japan, like, wow, you're Japanese, like you're so good. Where did you learn Japanese? So every time I have to explain my whole life story, but yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, mixed people tend to get that, don't you? I really appreciated Makoto's character never revealing where he's actually from. But this, like you said, you created this for a Japanese audience in mind, with kind of a specifically Japanese issue. But now you're here in the international setting. You just screened in New York. What was that experience like? Do you feel like the audience reaction? I mean, you're just sitting. Sat and watched with us. Has it changed the way you saw the movie at all?
Surprisingly, there was a lot of laughter. In Japan, there is almost none of that. So that was really interesting for us, I think, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we have a good audience here. So, and part of this being specific to Japan, I think there are things in the film that perhaps wouldn't be immediately recognizable to an American audience or a non-Japanese audience, such as what it means to be hafu in Japan and what are the assumptions. In the beginning, we see Makoto flip through a magazine, glamour magazine with a hafu model, and then we hear Haruki's mother suggest kind of coldly, why don't you just become an actor? There's a lot of them on TV. Can you take us through what the kind of assumptions are? What is the stereotype? What are you reacting against in terms of hafu portrayal that is prevalent in Japan?
I think, so we really wanted to keep this, we wanted to make it authentic. We didn't want to exaggerate anything. So everything in this film is actually something that happens to us almost daily. And what we were kind of reacting to was so most people, I think, in Japan, they don't have that a hafu around them, like a friend that's hafu. So where they get that stereotype of a hafu, I think it's from the media, TV. So I think we were trying to show something that you wouldn't see on TV. You wouldn't see like, the only hafu you see on TV is maybe, let's say, an athlete or a famous actor or an actress. So we wanted to kind of put the spotlight on a hafu that you wouldn't really meet. So we were reacting to that, the media, I guess you can say.
And this film starts and ends with kind of a similar place, and there's a journey there. You started on a train with Kai, your character. Can you take us through those last few shots? And this is open to the rest of you as well. What is your character feeling, Haruki feeling at that moment? What is going through his mind?
I think Haruki, this is I think his first time coming back to Japan in a long time, and he's going through a general identity crisis. And I think coming back to Japan really accentuated that. And I guess the difference between the first scene and the last scene is his view of the world changes, and his I guess he sees the diversity within the homogenous society, and he sees it a little different. But I don't think he's, completely overcome his traumas and his identity crisis. But I think there's a bit of an understanding by talking to other people with different perspectives of life, and Hitomi and Makoto. So I think he goes through a very subtle change. So I hope he will start loving himself more. Yes, we should all love ourselves. Yeah.
I'll ask one more, and then we'll open up to the audience. I had the pleasure of watching a screening or seeing a screening in Osaka, and I had to get this, interpreted for me because the Q&A was in Japanese. But I was stunned when, after this film played, there was a man who complimented you, but then eventually, essentially missed the entire point. Complimented you for being such good-looking boys, and why don't you go into acting? Is that what happened?
A pop group.
A pop group. You should form a pop group.
Yeah, he was like, "You guys are good looking. You should. Why are you feeling like this? You're good looking fellows. You should get
what
into
is the problem
modeling
here?
or some shit." Yeah, exactly.
So, to me, I was like, I got the message, and then I look around, and I'm like, have you had more reactions like that? Can you tell us a little bit more about your intentions with the film and the Japanese audience and the feedback you received?
Well, like my brother said, it's what you see is what you get. It's pretty much exactly like this in Japan, where every conversation that you have with someone that you've never really met before, it's the first time encounter, they usually start off with like, where are you from? Why is your Japanese so good? Are you hafu? All that. So I just, to be honest, I'm totally spacing out right now. What was the question?
Yeah, but particularly for those who've seen the film and then talk to you about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Like this gentleman in the theater.
Yeah, so what I found out was that the crew members and my castmates who were Japanese, we went to Osaka. We did a few screenings here and there, and then just hanging out with us in a Japanese setting and seeing that those comments being made in real life, they're like, oh, so this stuff actually does happen. And they're actually blown away. And it was really interesting because even after Osaka Asian Film Festival, we were on the elevator and we were going to the same party. And then this woman was like, oh, your Japanese is so good. It was really weird. We had like 5 different occasions where that happened right after the screening. It was really interesting.
So, yeah, the crew even.
Yeah.
Eye-opening. Okay, so let's open it up to the audience. If you have a question, I see the high hand raised in the very back here.
すごく良かったです。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
And I'd like to comment on the beginning film, the Tokyo Cars, if you don't mind. I was able to feel for the pain of the person who was, because I'm here for good now, but I went through same kind of thing. Now, most of us come here with either student visa or tourist visa. And it says, I will not apply for U.S. green card or citizenship. So first, you have to let that expire. So you are illegal. And the employer, which is, trying to get your green card, they'll become your slave master. I was a slave for 4 years. At the end of 4 years, I had nothing left in a bank account. Now that's for a green card. Now when I tried to get the U.S. citizenship, the immigration, this particular lady gave me a hard time because she thought admitting Japanese person to become U.S. citizen is not politically correct. So I was able to feel for the pain. And also, you speak Japanese so well. Yeah, I get that too. Oh, you speak English, but you're not supposed to,
Sounds like you should make a movie. Question? Another high hand in the back in the middle.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask, in the movie, I like a response Haruki makes that I'm not a hafu, I'm a daburu, right? What, for you guys, for each one of you, what does that mean especially? Like being a daburu? Or what is your idea of it?
Growing up in Japan, I've kind of, from a young age, I've always kind of identified as hafu. So for me, it's weirder to say double. And I think a lot of the people that I know who use double are actually the parents of biracial children. And they're like, no, they're not hafu, they're double. And I definitely understand where they're coming from. But personally, because I've grown up with it, it's never been used, at least for me, it's never been used as a derogatory term. So I've never really, I guess I stick with hafu, but I don't mind being called double, I guess.
I hadn't heard the term, honestly, until I saw this film. But then I talked to mixed race people who grew up in Japan. They're like, oh yeah, that's a thing. So maybe it's uniquely Japanese, that term, double?
Yeah, when I was writing the script as well, I did a lot of research, met up with went to a lot of half communities where, a lot of them identified as daburu or mixurutsu. And they took offense in being called hafu because of the actual term half is just half of something. So yeah, I guess, but I as well agree with Kai. I identify as hafu, and I've never really used the term daburu.
To add on to what they said, it comes from the history of daburu. It comes from what they were saying, the parents. It's on the older generation that said, hey, hafu is not a good word, so let's use daburu. And then they started using it, but then it kind of wasn't really used because it didn't get popular. So hafu is probably the most popular word to describe someone like us, or mixu. But I think hafu is the easiest way to kind of present ourselves, and it's less of a hassle. If somebody asks you where you're from, or you just say, oh, I'm hafu, and then that's all. If you say something else like, oh, I'm Japanese, but they hear like, oh, you don't look Japanese, or if you're like, oh, I'm daburu, it's like, what's that, So hafu is really easy to use, but at the same time, I've met people who don't like the word hafu. That's like in our generation, so it's really interesting, yeah.
Yeah, another one in the back.
Do you think that Japanese society will change?
I don't know if we have the time for this one.
Well, the reason I ask that is because I grew up in Germany, and German society has changed. The acceptance is much better than it used to be. So I'm wondering if Japanese can get there too.
I hope so, actually. They're trying to get more foreigners to come in now in Japan because it's an aging population. But at the same time, they're trying to only have these foreigners to come into Japan, work, and then leave. So it's not an integration process. So I'm not sure if Japan will change in our age, in our generation, but I really hope so it will change in the future. I think it is going towards that direction, but it might be very slow. That's how I feel.
I think it's inevitable. I mean, with the people and the globalization with the internet, and I think we're seeing it happen with Naomi Osaka and Rui Hachimura now, and Japan recently gave them permission for dual citizenship, which is a big deal. Japan's like, we can't lose them. They have to be Japanese too. So they gave them exceptions. I think that will more and more it will spread, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, I thought the Tokyo Club, I stayed recently for a couple of weeks at the Tokyo Club, and I thought they made an effort towards integration. They invited a lot of Japanese, they have a Japanese night to meet Westerners, business people, sort of like a LinkedIn kind of thing.
Fingers crossed.
We have time for a couple more.
Yeah. Hello. Hi.
We already have some of the mic right here.
Hi. Sorry about that. So first off, I want to thank you for making this film because, as a biracial person myself, the experience resonates with me in the sense that your appearance doesn't match your name, and which culture should you identify with more. So I just really appreciate that. There's not a lot of movies out there like that. So thank you for making that. And
Thank you.
my question is, at the end of the film, Makoto gets the letters translated for him, and he like you said, he's where he started at the beginning of the film, out on the balcony. Do you think that, based on the experience he went through the film, he's going to try and resonate with that other side of himself more, or look into it?
I feel like he is slowly getting into figuring out who his dad is. He was rejecting that idea this whole time. He'd identified as Japanese, but then after meeting Haruki and after becoming friends with Haruki, he is slowly gradually gonna attack this colossal idea of like figuring out who his dad is, and that's probably right after where his mom comes back home, and he has breakfast and the letters ready. I think he's about to have that conversation with his mother. Yeah. Thank you.
Last one right here.
Thank you so much for the film. I love the shots of the moon, that kind of bookend, the beginning and the ending of the movie. I was wondering, who are some of your influences? Directors, actors, screenwriters that you admire, that you look up to, fine artists, anybody in particular?
Actually, there are people that I admire and respect, and I do have directors that influence me. But for this film, we wanted to have our own fingerprint on it. So I even discussed it with my cinematographer, Take, and we wanted to have this look that we didn't want it to look like anything else. So we kind of just made everything as original as possible without like kind of being influenced by anything. So for this film, we try to stay very original. Yeah, I'm not sure about the acting perspective, but I don't know about their influences. That's what I meant. Sorry.
You're my influence.
Honestly, I just acted like myself. I mean, it was a lot harder for him, to be honest.
Any last words from the filmmaking team before we wrap up?
Oh, okay. Well, we really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope that we'll be able to show this to more international audiences like you guys. So I hope that this film will be able to make you think more about not just hafu, but I think in Tokyo Kurds, you see like refugees. So other minorities in Japan also go through the same thing. So I really hope this film will be able to kind of make mostly Japanese people wake up to the situation there.
You're good? Yeah. Well, you'll hang out in the lobby, so please stop by and chat, and then we'll clear out for the next film. Thank you so much, everyone.